Okay, so my dog pepper needs a new collar. This one that I made that was really meant to be temporary is starting to show a lot of wear. A lot of scratches and nicks and rolling and even some cracking right here. That has me a bit concerned. Okay. But this one was meant to be kind of temporary while she grew up, so we're going to make her a more permanent one. And the only odd thing I want to do is I want to make it a little wider so that the vaccination tag that I'm going to rivet to it will fit on it. And I want to add a handle to grab onto on the back of it for when she's a little bit too rambunctious and I need to get her under control. So, quick, easy project otherwise. Alright, one minor complicating factor in this is that I don't have an 1.25" buckle. I only have a 1-inch buckle laying around. At least a center bar. I've got some heel bars, but heel bars don't stay on dog collars very well. I like having a center bar that keeps it in place better. So I'm going to use a 1-inch buckle on an 1.25" strap. I'm going to have to taper it down on both ends. But that shouldn't be too hard. I've got this built-in template jig that I can use to mark where everything goes. I should do that before I trim it off, is why I just suddenly changed the subject there. We can just mark all that. And a dog collar can be technically a little different than a belt, but it's not really that much, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to use this template. Alright, and then I can see basically where my buckle's going to be and where I can taper it off. We're going to go up right about to that last hole. I've got my strap cutter set to 1 1/8. So to bring it down to 1 inch, you need to take 1/8 inch off of each side. And I'm going to do that just by using an 1 1/8 strap cutter and not trimming these things off until after I've got both of them cut. At least about the same length. And it's just a matter of taking and trimming off the little edges. Like so. Now we measure up our collar length, whatever it needs to be. Use whatever hole she's been using as the center hole. Actually, I usually put less holes on a dog collar than I do on a belt, and I usually leave the end a little shorter. So a belt end cutter isn't quite as good for this. But we're going to put a hole each direction of the hole she's using. She's probably not going to change much. If she does, I make another collar. And then I want to give her about 4 inches past that last hole. Which is going to be a little less than, like I said, what's on this belt strap. Now, of course, you can make all this a little different if you want. This is just what works for me today. And again, we're going to use our strap cutter to taper this side. So that it can go through that buckle. We're going to go past the last hole on this one. Because you got to slide up past your, if you ever try to use that hole, you got to slide the buckle past it to get it to buckle in. Nothing major, just about an inch or so past that. Alright, then we mark our end. I think I actually have a 1-inch end cutter, but you know what? We'll just do it this way. Well, let's go ahead and punch some holes. 1/8 inch for the rivets. Number 4, which I think is 3/16 or 5/32. I can't remember which. For the sizing holes. And a bag punch. Or just punch 2 holes and cut between them for the belt tongue to go through. I just like to take the corners off of it somewhat even. There we go. And I like to skive these ends too. Again, totally not necessary, but I think it makes it a little nicer and more comfy for the dog. They don't have that lump. Because it lays down smoother that way against the collar. Well, that's the basic shape. Well, let's make a piece to be a handle. For this, I will grab my strap end punch. They can be a little finicky to line up because they don't always come out even from the manufacturer. But we're going to take a piece. And for most handles, you need a couple inches on the end. You need an inch or so up. You need at least 4 inches or so for the hand. You need another couple inches on the end. So let's give 1.5 inches on either side. Let's make it 9 inches. Alright, now I'm both going to rivet and stitch this onto the collar. So we're going to take just a little ways up there. We'll say our 1.25 inches up there. That's about right. Doink. And another 1.25 inches from that point. Punch them rivet holes. Now, I'll do some stitching on there as well. Now, you may wonder how in the world we figure out how to make a handle attached to the round collar. Well, that is a bit tricky. So we need our center point on our collar, which is going to be the center point between, it's easier to figure out with the buckle on it, where it's going to buckle and that. And so our center point is going to be right around in here. Make a little bit of a thumbnail mark there. Now, when the collar is just right while it's laying flat, the handle is, well, when you go to wrap it around a dog, they get smaller. So the collar actually needs to be just a little bit tight. But, as I said before, we're planning on this being a handle that's about an inch or so up on either side. And then we've got a handle that's gonna be right around 4 inches wide. Well, these rivet holes like I said, if we put them straight, 4 inches wide is going to be just about right. Like I said, we'll lose a little bit to the curve of the dog, but this is going to look like it's really punched up there when it's laying flat. But once it's curved around a dog, it'll be a pretty good thing to grab onto. Now we're going to line this just to make it a little sturdier, do some stitching on it, and I think I'm going to stamp Pepper's name on it as well. So also just knocking this out with a strap cutter real quick. Piece of about 3-ounce leather. Right out of the scrap bin. Actually, all of these straps and pieces are out of my scrap bin. So, basically a scrap project. Now then, next up, let's go ahead and bevel some edges. I'd like to point out that you don't need to bevel the back edges on this piece because it's going to have a piece lined onto it. And we'll have to bevel that later after we've got it all dyed and finished and glued on and everything we need to do to put that in place. Now, one thing I do like to do on straps, even if I'm not planning on stitching them, is I like to put a crease along the edge. I think it just makes them look nicer. Pepper's original collar had a creased edge as well. Can't hardly see it anymore. But it just makes everything look more intentionally finished rather than just a plain strap. To go ahead and run that line along that edge. Okay, unable to find my 1/2-inch stamp set. It's either further afield than normal or right next to me and buried somewhere where I can't find it. But anyway, we're just going to go ahead and carve it then. Do it the hard way. Let's go ahead and find the center point of this. Right around there. Ugly Pepper is a very easy name to start at the center and work your way out from. 2 P's, then an E on each side of that. Another P at the beginning. And an R at the end. And the aforementioned doing it the hard way. Alright, let's see. If I can do this inverted or if I have to start over. Basically, I want to just do these letters as silhouettes, if I can. Which means beveling them inverted and then backgrounding them down. Some of the letters are going to be easier than others. Those E's, which is why I started with one of them, I think are going to be the most challenging. If I have to start the whole thing all over again, I'd rather get it out of the way in the first couple letters rather than try some of the easier ones first and then wind up figuring out that, oh, I'm not going to like the looks of this. So. I think the R is going to look great though. Alright, let's see what they look like backgrounded. I'm using a 104-2 backgrounder here. It's a little tiny one. It's actually I consider it to be the 104.5 because it's like half sized of a 104 backgrounder. You could probably do like this R I'm doing right here. You could probably do with a regular backgrounder, but I don't think I'd be able to get into all of this E with it. Okay, let's get some dye on this. I'm going to use a golden brown dye. I think this is Pro Dye, formerly the Professional Oil Dye of Fiebing's. More of a nice tan color than some of their other brown dyes, so. I might see if I can get a bigger bottle of this. It's kind of becoming a favorite of mine. Oh, you're gonna stop being cute, huh? Alright, let's put some Resolene on as a finish. Alright, and then a bit of glue to stick these together before I stitch them. As usual, I'm just using contact cement. Okay. A little bit of stitching on that, which I'll do off camera because it's just run it through the machine real quick. I'm going to stitch all around. Well, I'm probably just going to stitch here to here. And then after I rivet it, I'm going to stitch around these ends to stitch it to the actual collar piece. That seems the best way to go. I have to avoid getting into my letters there while I do this and messing those up. But anyway, alright, let's do a little trimming on this. Alright. Using a dark brown dye called Show Brown to finish my edges. Trying to do it without causing too much carnage on either the front or the back, which is always the trick with finishing edges, especially when you're using a dye instead of something a little more forgiving, like a edge coat or something like that. And we're also going to throw some gum trag on the edge and burnish them to smooth them all out nice. Because even if it is just a dog collar, it should be done well. Actually, kind of, especially since it's a collar and it's going to be worn by something that has to be comfortable with it. Should make sure your edges are finished. I'm using a glass burnisher with rounded edges on the back here to burnish it and smooth it out nice and neat. You can kind of use the edges, but it also seems to work well just to use the flat. Okay, now all the edges are finished. It's rivet time. We're going to go ahead and put our ring on first because you can't really slide it on from the other direction if you don't remember to do that. You kind of can, but it's not easy. And pop the two rivet pieces together, and I'm going to have to move this one to the edge of my slab here so the buckle can hang off, because otherwise it's going to be kind of in my way. I know that's sort of out of frame, but it's just setting a rivet. Just like this one, I'm going to put that ring between two layers. That's for us to attach the leash to. Also functions as a keeper. And we're going to set a rivet the same way I just did that one off camera. Here we go. Now, let's put our... Oh, gotta punch some holes. Forgot about that. Let's punch our holes the rest of the way through. Since I don't have them through the lining piece. Let's see if these rivets are long enough. I don't think they are. Nope, not gonna be. That's just below the surface and we want to stick out just a bit. So I'm gonna need, instead of medium rivets, I'll need long ones, or large rivets. I should have known ahead of time that that would be the case, because generally you can go through 2 layers of about 8-ounce leather with mediums and 3 layers with large. And this is, 7-8-ounce leather. But then I've got that other piece in there that's probably about 3. So it's more than you'd want to go through with just a medium, but not quite as much as you want to go through with a large. But it's in that range that you go with a large. Alright, we got one side set. The other side's going to be trickier, because we got to push everything off enough to get it to fit. And line up that hole. Alright. Now this is going to want to sit kind of weird when it's sitting still. But once it's on the dog's neck, it'll be fine. And we'll just have to do a little bit of kind of gentle shaping there to get it shaped the way I want it to go. But let's go ahead and put another hole in for her vaccination tag that I always want to make sure she has on her. That's probably going to be a small rivet to attach that. Yep. I'm actually going to set that one the other way around, because the hole in the tag isn't quite big enough for the cap of the rivet, but it's fine for the rivet size. Okay, vaccination tags are on there. She has her shot record with her like she's supposed to. And now she's got a handle. So I'm going to go put some stitches in right around this this end here. Get that all secured on good and tight. And then this will basically be done. We'll come back and see what Pepper thinks about it.